Chapter 1, Arjuna Vishada Yoga, the Yoga of Arjuna's Dejection. The Bhagavad Gita opens on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, just before the start of the epic war between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. Chapter 1 sets the scene and introduces the psychological and emotional turmoil of Arjuna, one of the greatest warriors and the central figure to whom Lord Krishna reveals the Gita's teachings. The chapter is composed of 47 verses and is often referred to as the Yoga of Arjuna's Despondency. The scene is set. The first verse is spoken by King Dhritarashtra, the blind father of the Kauravas, who asks his minister, Sanjaya, to describe the events unfolding on the battlefield. His question, "What did my sons and the sons of Pandu do, assembled at the field of Dharma, the field of Kurukshetra?" subtly reflects his anxiety and moral ambiguity, as he fears the consequences of the war. Sanjaya begins to describe how both armies are arrayed and ready for battle. The Kaurava side is led by Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra's ambitious and proud son. Duryodhana surveys the Pandava army and reports on its formation to his teacher, Dronacharya, expressing both confidence and concern. He highlights the strengths of the enemy's side, naming great warriors such as Bhima, Arjuna, Satyaki, and Drupada. Duryodhana then boasts about the strength of his own army, but the underlying tone reveals a sense of insecurity. The warriors on the Kaurava side begin to blow their conch shells, symbolizing readiness for war. In response, the Pandava side also blows their conches. The loud, thunderous sound of the conch shells shakes the hearts of the Kaurava soldiers, foreshadowing the intense battle ahead. Arjuna's moral dilemma. At this pivotal moment, Arjuna asks Lord Krishna, who is serving as his charioteer, to place the chariot in the middle of the battlefield so he can see the warriors assembled on both sides. As Arjuna looks around, he sees his relatives, revered elders, teachers, cousins, and friends on both sides, people he loves and respects. This sight deeply disturbs him. Arjuna is suddenly overwhelmed by sorrow, compassion, and confusion. His body trembles, his bow slips from his hands, and his mind reels. He is caught in a storm of emotions, and he expresses his unwillingness to fight. He argues that killing his kinsmen, even in a just war, will only lead to the destruction of family traditions and social chaos. He fears the spiritual degradation that would result from such a war. Arjuna's anguish is not born out of cowardice, but from a profound moral and emotional crisis. He feels it is better to renounce the battle, even if it means being killed unarmed, than to kill his loved ones for the sake of a kingdom. Themes and significance. 1. Human conflict and emotion. This chapter vividly captures the internal conflict faced by Arjuna. It symbolizes the universal human experience of moral dilemma, fear, and emotional overwhelm when confronted with difficult choices. Arjuna's sorrow is relatable to any person who has faced deep personal or ethical challenges. 2. The battlefield as a metaphor. Kurukshetra is both a physical and symbolic battlefield. It represents the field of life where every individual must confront choices, duties, and the struggle between right and wrong. Arjuna's reluctance to fight reflects the inner resistance to face hardship, loss, and painful duties. 3. Beginning of the spiritual journey. Arjuna's despondency marks the beginning of his spiritual awakening. His willingness to question the righteousness of his actions and eventually surrender to a higher wisdom sets the foundation for the teachings that follow in later chapters. The Gita uses this moment of despair to introduce the path of self-inquiry and transformation. 4. Importance of dharma, duty. The concept of dharma, or righteous duty, is introduced in Arjuna's questioning. Though he is a warrior whose duty is to fight for justice, he hesitates due to emotional bonds and attachment. This tension between personal emotions and social responsibility becomes a central theme of the Gita. Conclusion of Chapter 1. The chapter ends with Arjuna casting aside his bow and arrows and collapsing onto the seat of his chariot, utterly defeated by his own inner conflict. He turns to Krishna for guidance, not yet fully realizing the divine nature of his charioteer. The last verse sets the stage for the spiritual dialogue that begins in Chapter 2. It marks the transition from worldly concerns to the higher philosophical discourse that defines the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna's breakdown becomes the catalyst for his transformation,